Leonard's interest in theatre had started early, while he was still in school. Later, he went on to become a member of the Trafalgar Players.
And during one play that he was acting in, Dame Flora Robson came out to see the work that was happening within the coloured townships. And she saw Leonard acting, and she came to speak to him afterwards and said that she thought he ought to train for the theatre. And when she got back to London, she was going to approach the principal of RADA. And he said, oh, that was very nice, and he didn't believe her, quite frankly. However, when she got back to England, she wrote to him and said she wanted him to apply. And again, he didn't do anything about it, because he thought, well, he couldn't afford it, how would he get there, he had nowhere to live. And she wrote a third time and said she really did want him to apply, and she'd spoken to John Fernett, and she'd set up, they'd arranged that they could have two separate auditions in South Africa, which was unheard of, because everybody had to go to London to be auditioned. And he went along, and seems strange thinking back how students nowadays, they get lots of preparation before they go for an audition. And he just prepared himself, and he was awarded an open scholarship to RADA.
Leonard was finally ready to leave for England in 1960 to start his training at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art.
When he was coming across from South Africa to England in order to attend RADA, he had to try and pick up a pass in order to come over here. And he said that he used to have to go to I think it was a police station or some official office, and ask whether it had arrived. And he said that he could see that it arrived, it was on the side in the office. And each day he'd go and say, has it arrived yet? And they'd say, no, it's not come yet, even though it was clearly visible. And even though he sort of made the arrangements to move and sold his things, it felt touch and go whether he was going to get to England, because it depended on an official giving him that piece of paper. And as a coloured man, as he would have been at the time, in South Africa, there wasn't any power that you had in order to force people's hands in those situations.
So he went there and studied for 2 years, and passed out with distinction on the Shakespearean area, which is interesting because that was always his great love afterwards. And then he went and worked in the professional theatre in the West End and other places, and Dame Flora was very kind to him. He used to go and stay with her in the holidays, and she was always really fond of him, and he always kept in touch with her, and she was very, very good to him.
I'm getting at the fact that there may be some justification for their attitude. They may not like the image of the past, the portrayal of their humiliation, the reminder of their slavery. You asked me to go along with you because you thought that my advice could be relied on, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, shall I make a concession?
If you want to.
I've very seldom been inside an African location, and I've certainly never been inside Nyanga.
I can't believe it.
Absolutely true. It'll be the first time I've been into a location since I was a child.
Have you no black friends?
I knew one or two at university, but that's all.
Although he worked for a while as a professional actor, teaching was his true calling. His career at Loughborough University began in 1966, when he joined the staff of the College of Education as lecturer in drama, becoming head of drama in 1970.
I first remember meeting Leonard when I was interviewed for a job here. He was on the panel, and he came across as someone who just had a kind of dignity about him, and that was the impression he always gave. Dignity actually isn't quite the right word, because it suggests someone who's pompous, and he certainly wasn't that. It was just a kind of quiet self-possession, and he had a wonderful, light sense of humour as well. What I suppose I remember Leonard most for is that he made things happen in the department on the drama side.
While at Loughborough, he also met the person with whom he would go on to build a family.
Well, I met him at Loughborough, surprisingly, in 1966. I went on a course which was being run for teachers, and at that time I taught at a primary school in Hackney, East London, and I was teaching drama there as one of the subjects that I taught. And so I booked into the summer school, and when I arrived, Leonard was there. he was about to start at Loughborough College of Education, as it then was, as a lecturer the following term. So he'd come to the summer school to see how they carried out the procedures within the department, and we met there. And then we carried on seeing one another, and we got married. Prior to that, after I'd left him at Loughborough and I went back to London, I was about to go on holiday to Switzerland, and the taxi driver took me to the airport, and I informed him that I just met the man I was going to marry, although I'd had no indication of that from Leonard at that point, that he thought that, but I certainly did. So I suppose in a way I just knew. People say you know when you've met the right person, and I think I knew.
And what did the taxi driver say?
He just laughed.
In 1970, Leonard came up with the idea of building a new drama studio to augment the existing facilities in the department. He even drew the first ground plans for it. Appropriately, he asked Dame Flora Robson to inaugurate the studio.
Saturday, Brighton. Dear Rosemary and Leonard, just a short note to say thank you for so many things. Your hospitality in a lovely home where there's so much happiness. The bright-eyed children, so alive. William, only 10 weeks old and already aware, and Jeremy shedding charm on everyone. These are the private joys. But so wonderful to hear of success in work through all sorts of difficulties. I share this joy because they said, "Thank you for giving us Leonard." So, when you run into difficulties with students, we all do, remember there are people with faith in your judgment. I was thrilled that the Vice-Chancellor was planning more theatre and music, so you can both look forward to joining in that new enterprise. I feel terribly tired. Any exertion now sends me to bed for a day, after years of giving all my strength. But ask me back again to stay and just join in a talk-in of technical and artistic subjects, preferably in your house or somewhere intimate. Everyone made me so welcome. I forgot I was a square. I love you all so much. Thank you. Flora.